Hello YouTubers out there, this is the Boob Wasteland Show with your host Jerry Saravia. So today we're going to talk about Arsenio Hall, who as many of you may know is returning to network television, CBS, and is bringing back the Arsenio Hall show, and that will be on September 9th of this year, 2013. As many of you know, Arsenio Hall, maybe some of the younger viewers don't know, but well, I know, used to have his own show called the Arsenio Hall Show, which was a syndicated show distributed by Paramount Television and CBS Television. And it ran from January 1989 up until May 27th of 1994, which was when it was canceled. Now this show, Arsenio Hall Show, was on in LA around 11 p.m., which means when I was living in New York, I was watching it technically, I think, around 8 o'clock, if I remember correctly. 8 or 9 o'clock. So it was definitely on long before The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson at that time, because Carson left in 1992, replaced by Jay Leno for The Tonight Show. So Arsenio Hall was on during that time and did pretty well. He found an audience, a younger audience, that was not there necessarily for Johnny Carson. And that audience would be the type that liked the rap artists of the day, the R&B, people like Snoop Doggy Dogg, of course now known as Snoop Lion, Dr. Dre, Cypress Hill, Tupac Shakur, Ice-T, Queen Latifah, Arista Development, Salt and Pepper. These were the musical acts. And of course he had all kinds of guests. He had his best friend, I don't know if he still is today, but at least back then he was, Eddie Murphy. And of course Arsenio Hall starred in some of Eddie Murphy's movies, including Coming to America and Harlem Nights, and both were previewed on that show. So Eddie Murphy was a guest. At one time, believe it or not, the second time Eddie Murphy was on, there was a surprise guest appearance by Michael Jackson. But this show had its own kind of spirit. It had that whole whoop, 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 whoop type of thing. In fact, one of my favorite shows was the one that had Andrew Dice Clay, stand-up comedian, who 20 plus years ago now was something of a controversial figure, particularly in Saturday Night Live, where he was banned. And he came on Arsenio Hall show and tearfully, whether he was acting or not, said, "I'm going to be one of the biggest movie stars of all time, and if you know, none of you like it, you kiss my ass," some kind of thing like that. And he was promoting The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. Of course, guess what? Back in 1990, that was the summer that film came out, and Andrew Dice Clay did not become one of the big box office stars of all time at all, ever. So anyway, he had all these type of guests that I think Johnny Carson, and then when Jay Leno took over for The Tonight Show, didn't have, or David Letterman for that matter. So the show was doing well, the Arsenio Hall show, but problems started to occur. And the problem was the kind of issue that I think takes place today, and that is it's overcrowded. And the overcrowding started in late night. Now, Arsenio Hall, when he debuted, which was a channel called KCOP, Channel 13 in Los Angeles. And again, this was at 11 p.m. in Los Angeles, but in the East Coast at 8 o'clock. At that time, he was going to be followed at 11:30 p.m. by the Pat Sajak show. Now, Arsenio Hall was syndicated, so it wasn't like it was on necessarily the same channel. But Pat Sajak had his own show. It was at 11:30, ran for an hour and a half. That show lasted 12 months and disappeared. So, okay, Arsenio Hall was fine with that. Okay, everything is cool. That was in 1989. But then, when Jay Leno took over for The Tonight Show in 1992, and David Letterman was turned down for the job presumably to host The Tonight Show, David Letterman left NBC and guess what? Came to CBS. And that would have been at the same time slot as The Tonight Show, 11:30. I think eventually that changed to 11:35. Now, Pat Sajak was really no competition for Arsenio Hall, but David Letterman was. And he was considered, at the very least, one of the kings of late night. And of course, the Late Show David Letterman was replaced in '93 by Conan O'Brien at the 12:30, 12:35 slot, whatever it is. So then other problems started to occur. Um, Not the least of which was Chevy Chase. Now, Chevy Chase also had his own show at one time. Now I'm not clear at what the time that was on, because I never watched the Chevy Chase show. I love Chevy Chase, but I've seen clips of him as a talk show host, and no, can't, no. But anyway, that was on Fox, by the way, the Chevy Chase show. That didn't last. Pat Sajak's, of course, did not, but things were starting to happen. And of course, the main competition was Letterman, and also at the time, a little guy that some of you may know, Jon Stewart. And he had a daily 30-minute late-night program hosted by Jon Stewart on MTV. Arsenio was starting to lose his audience because of this guy. The new Jon Stewart show was a complete success. Very quickly became a success. And the most popular show on TV, MTV, behind Beavis and Butthead. And that was shortly after the summer of 1993. So 1993 was not, that was the beginning of the end, really, that year. Especially Letterman, for Arsenio Hall. Now, Fox scheduled the Chevy Chase show directly against Leno and Letterman. So I guess it was on at 11:30. I didn't remember this. But it was a complete failure. So that didn't work. That was Fox. Arsenio Hall faced some problems, apparently, when he had the Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, who was certainly a controversial figure. And the ratings started to really dip after that. And so the thought was that Paramount, which had been bought by MTV's parent company, Viacom, shortly before the cancellation of Arsenio, they chose to keep going and decided to replace Arsenio Hall's show, because the ratings were falling, with a syndicated 60-minute edition of the Jon Stewart Show. And now apparently Jon Stewart's syndicated series was nowhere near as popular as the MTV series, and the Jon Stewart Show ended its run at the end of the television season in 1995. But by that point, Arsenio Hall's show was canceled. Apparently there was a Howie Mandel show, which was launched in daytime syndication and never found an audience. That was in 1998. That's a whole other story. So now the real question is, what's going to happen? And interestingly enough, when you look back, the type of musical guests, and also regular guests that Arsenio Hall had, but in particular, I mean, he had Bill Clinton playing the saxophone, which many have alluded to helping find the youth vote for Bill Clinton, because he hadn't been president yet. But these type of musical guests were not in the other late night talk show hosts. Once again, Arrested Development, Snoop Dogg, Doggy Dog, Dr. Dre, Cypress Hill, all these people, R&B and rap artists were not, basically hip-hop, were not in these other late night shows. And it's interesting that now, most of them have been. I mean, Snoop Dogg has been on Conan O'Brien, has been on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, has been on, and so on and so forth. I mean, there isn't one show that specifically gears towards that type of an audience, but Arsenio Hall at the time did. So that presents a problem. Now, Arsenio Hall is going to be on the 10 to 11 p.m. slot. The new Arsenio Hall, which is coming September, from CBS. I guess in some markets, if I understood correctly, it will be aired at 11 p.m., some affiliates. But basically, it's the 10 to 11 p.m. time slot. This time slot is a little tricky, because it didn't really work for Guess Who, the Jay Leno show, which was on when Conan O'Brien took over for The Tonight Show. So the Jay Leno show, of course, seemed like it was a Tonight Show, but an hour and a half earlier. So Arsenio Hall has to set himself apart, but he's facing a great deal of competition from the late night crowd. Because I think most of us, when we think of late night, we think of anything after 11 p.m., not 10 to 11 p.m. I could be wrong, and I will check out Arsenio Hall's new show because I was a fan of his show. In fact, at that time, when we're talking now the early 90s, his was really the only late night show I watched. I was never really a fan of Letterman at that time, or I mean, I watched Carson here and there, but basically Arsenio Hall was the show I watched. But that was on earlier too in the East Coast, so maybe he'll find some sort of an audience. But the point is that that kind of a hip hop audience, the young crowd, the 18 to 49 demographic, it's not going to be so easy anymore because they are watching these other late night shows, in particular Conan O'Brien, who has steadily become quite popular, and that's a TBS show. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see. Most young people today may not know anyone born after 1993, or 94 for that matter, which is when the original Arsenio Hall show canceled, will have no idea who the hell Arsenio Hall is unless they watch Celebrity Apprentice. His appearance, really on anything has been kind of, I think he did some sort of might have done some sort of America's Funniest Videos type of program. But aside from that, and Celebrity Apprentice, he hasn't done any movies or anything, so how are people going to know who he is? For the young, if that's the demographic they're really concerned about, the 18 to 49. 30 and older, I mean, like myself, I know who he is, but I don't know if any 20-somethings out there know. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see. He has to step it up somehow to set himself apart. It's going to be tough. Because at that time, 20 plus years ago, he was certainly unique. Not even mentioning the fact that he was a black TV host. But today, I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be it's kind of a hard sell. It wasn't easy for George Lopez, and he was on much later. So we'll see. I don't know. I hope it does well, but something tells me it might not. But then again, we'll see what his competition is on that time slot in CBS. So we'll get back to this and discuss it again in the future. So good luck to you, Arsenio, and I hope it works. I don't know what else to say. Let's hope. I pray for you. And this is the Boob Wasteland Show with your host, Jerry Saravia, signing off.